Um, that's not it. That's it. So we'll get there, and then I want to, first I want to just show you this. So I built a link to it, and I'll show you. And this is sort of like an illustrated. Marcus, you asked me about that job. For the job that I talked about, the summer research assistant job that I talked about, the one that is available for the summer in residence, you work on campus, 10 weeks, $4,000. I had to do a little proposal for, so not surprisingly, I built it in a TiddlyWiki. And I realized that this is actually very similar to the project I'm asking you to work on now. So I built one and built a couple of extra features in so that you could see it. So it's so the name of the project is TiddlyWiki is a Xanological structure. I decided not to have you guys read the literature on Xanological structures, but that's the computer science. I think it's computer science or information architecture that's underlying some of the work that we're doing. So, but I just chose not to have you read it. But I did write about it in here a little bit. And if you look at this is delivered. This is like an essay or a paper or a project or something that's delivered. And it's meant to be delivered to somebody who's not familiar with TiddlyWiki, who they can just read it. They don't have to click on anything. And I might even take this like you see, I've taken all the tools out, so there's really nothing to do. I could probably take all those tools out, so there's really literally nothing to do. It's tricky if you do that because you have to build a little secret way back in case you need to change something. Because you can set it up so it's like, oh, then so I stripped most of the tools out, and so it's got a little bit of navigational or interaction, so you can view the citation. So I say I'm looking at, so I have citations to things. I built that Google Scholar. I'm going to show you how we built that. So that just, instead of actually linking to the actual object, I link to the Google Scholar version of it. I can hide them. It's pretty straightforward. There's not much to it. What I did do that's kind of intriguing and that you could do is I created this show documents macro that turns on all my documentation. I showed you this before last week, and we can add this in again if you wanted to write in your essay. So now all that stuff that's highlighted in yellow, and there's not that much of it. So the first one, and I don't think you can read that, but the first one says, this tiddler illustrates the use of the list field to order elements in a sequential presentation. View the list field of the current tiddler using list filter and default. And so it explains what I do and builds a link to the actual tiddler, which happens to be the one we're looking at. So if you wanted to edit it and see what we're talking about, this is the list field. Okay, so you hadn't seen that. But the idea is that you could build this documentation into your projects as well, and then that would be kind of helpful for me and for you to begin to see what you're doing. And I'm just starting to introduce this idea now. Here's how you get the stuff. I'm using the show notes macro. So it's a macro, and it opens with double angle brackets, the word show, and then something in quotes, ends in quotes, close in double angle brackets. Doesn't make it yellow. To make it yellow, you'd need to bring over the show notes macro. So, and I'm going to show you how to do that. That's part of what I want to show you today. But I did want to draw your attention to this wiki. It's there for you to view. And notice I'm going to show you how to put this up in the top bar in case you want to play with that. So we're just starting to get a little bit more, because what we're doing in this exercise, the one that's due, I'd love to have it by Sunday or so, before spring break. The one that's due is now you're starting to say, well, instead of saying here's some squares and here's some stuff that I did, it's like here's a finished piece of work. So it's so you want to think about the way it looks and what's there. So what I want to cover today in a workshop kind of concept, if I can find it, go back to today. is talk about, I'll just call it a TiddlyWiki essay, and something that you submit. An essay is not meant to suggest anything other than it's something you submit. It's a finished product. Something you submit, most likely it's going to include references and annotations. We've talked about that. I think most everybody's got that, but I'm going to run through it again because having played with it now, you hopefully are getting used to like, okay, well, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to make this a little different? I'm going to show you the idea that I've got under documentation. The show notes macro I just showed you, and maybe if you want to decide to put it up in the top bar menu like I did in the example I just showed you, how you do that. And then think about presentation. Default tiddlers, and if you notice here, when I reload this, the sidebar's hidden. So this is the sidebar, so it's gone. And so maybe you want to begin to think about, well, do I want to get rid of that sidebar? You know, do I want to have it, or if I want to have it, should I put some content? And what is it? What am I doing with that as a writer, as a designer? And so we'll talk about that. So that's the whole idea for the workshop. And I thought what I'd do is I kind of run through that. I want to do it sort of quickly because I'm trying to make these videos more useful to everybody. So when you watch them again, they're shorter, not super long. So maybe 20 minutes. Then I'm going to step back and review some of the projects that I've looked at already. And then have you share, and then basically we'll open up a discussion as you think about your projects and these papers and what you're going to do, and then I'll let you go from there. Okay.